Before we begin the video, I want to make the announcement that several days ago YouTube completely demonetized pretty much every single video since the beginning of November all the way until November 20th. And so right now, collecting like 1 million views per month approximately, I'm only receiving $50. Just like this, $50. YouTube demonetized every single video, even though my channel is in good standing. All these videos, they passed all the ad suitability checks. I contacted YouTube support 5-6 times, but they said that we don't see any problem, your channel is working as intended. Obviously it's not, but they don't see any problem. So because of this, for now, I will continue making videos obviously, but I'm not gonna be getting any ad revenue. So yeah, just for comparison reasons, for every video that I make 200,000 views, 250,000 views, YouTube gives me approximately $5 in ad revenue. So for this reason, obviously, I will need your support. So in case you want to support my channel, there are Patreon links, there are donations you can make in the super chats, you can become my channel member, PayPal link, anything helps because relying on YouTube is no longer sustainable, just YouTube simply steals money from me. It's as simple as that. Because of these things, I lost thousands of dollars. It was happening in the past as well, but it was only a couple of videos per month. And so in November, like I said, every single video until last week got completely demonetized. So sorry for the long introduction, sorry for the long announcement. So I have nothing else to say, but let's continue with the video. The grand withdrawal of Russians from the south picks up the speed, and Russia once again started threatening with nuclear weapons, but Zelensky does not believe this bluff anymore. In addition to that, the Western countries also stopped being afraid of Putin, and because of this, the Pentagon gave a green light to Ukraine to attack Russia. But more about all of this in just a couple of minutes. What's up, investors? It's the Russian Canadian dude. And let's go straight to the point and see some most recent footage, or at least the one which I'm still allowed to show. And first of all, in Moscow, another mall was caught on fire. And another thing about Moscow is that this recently exchanged weapon baron Viktor Bout became a part of a political party, LDPR. Just as a reminder, last week this guy has been exchanged for a basketball player from America, Brittany Griner, and since then he became a relatively kinda active political activist in Russia. And yeah, I think it is worth mentioning that as soon as he came back to Russia, he has been pardoned from his crimes, which is just selling weapons to terrorists. Our next picture comes to us from Kharkov, where it has been another search in one of Ukrainian monasteries. And as a result of this investigation by the Ukrainian security services, they were able to find stacks of cash, as well as pro-Russian materials, and for some reason, the food of the Russian military. Next we go all the way across Ukraine to the Carpathy region, the city of Uzhhorod. And as you can see right here, the famous actor Jean-Claude Van Damme was able to meet with one of his heroes, a Ukrainian medical professional. I wish I can show you a little bit more footage than this, and I promise, later I will show you just a couple more photos and videos, but as for now, because this was probably the potential reason for demonetization, this is all I got. And if you want to see the rest photos and videos, I uploaded some of them on my Discord, and the rest will be available on my Patreon. At this very moment, this is one of the best ways to support my channel financially, and if you wish to do so, the links will be down below. Alright, and now let's talk about some extremely important updates from the East. And first of all, according to the report by the Institute for the Study of War, Russians brought approximately 200 units of military vehicles and equipment from Kherson region to the east. And this is most likely the response of Russians to an increased pressure by Ukrainians in Svatove-Kreminna direction. And the main directions of Russian attacks remained more or less the same, which is next to Spirne, Bakhmut, Donetsk City and Avdiivka. The same report also claims that Russians most likely switched their military tactics. And now, instead of just sending hundreds of soldiers to capture specific areas, and I mean they still continue to do this, now they also prioritize to send smaller diversion groups. And in addition to collecting the intelligence data, they are also able to move closer and quieter to Ukrainian positions. And obviously the most intense fighting in the east at this very moment is happening around Bakhmut. And according to the Ukrainian side, Russians are attacking Bakhmut from 3 different sides. The first direction of these attacks comes from the east of Bakhmut. The second comes from the northeast from Pidgorodny and Bakhmutsky direction. And finally, Russians also recently intensified their attacks from the south, from Opotne. And yes, obviously the objective of Russians, at least in their own minds, is to encircle Bakhmut and capture this settlement. And in addition to that, it has been reported recently that Ukrainians were able to destroy an elite group of Russian soldiers called Spetsnaz. So, as you can see, besides repelling Russian attacks, Ukrainians are also able to launch successful counter-offensive. In addition to Bakhmut, Russians also attempted several attacks in the south of this area. And reportedly, Russians tried to breach defenses of Ukrainians in Pavlivka, Vuhledar and Velika Novosilka. All of these attacks were successfully repelled, and even more. Specifically, Ukrainians allegedly were able to push Russians a little bit back next to Pavlivka and even destroy several military vehicles of Russians next to Velika Novosilka. There has also been some combat activity in Donetsk city, in Bakhmut and in Svatove, and I do have a footage of this, but as you already know, I definitely cannot show it right here. So just once again, if you want to see it and support the channel, the links will be down below. And then right now, let's take a look at changes in territorial control in the last several days. And first of all, as you can see right here, Russians were able to advance just a little bit closer to Bakhmut. As we move a little bit to the north, to Yakovlivka, we can see that Russians were able to capture this settlement, but the very next day Ukrainians contested this place once again. And ultimately, right here we can see that Ukrainians moved a little bit closer to Svatove-Kreminna road. And while I'm going there, please consider liking this video and subscribing to my channel if you like this style of daily updating. You can also follow me on Instagram and send me a message, and I will reply to you. And first of all, as you can see right here, a new road is being built between Mykolaiv and Kherson. And then, according to both Russian and Ukrainian sources, Ukrainians were attacking the Russian military targets in Novokakhovka, Oleshki, Holopristan and Skadovsk. And the response of Russians was mainly on the other side of Dnipro river, next to also Novokakhovka and Kherson city. Ukrainian partisans also reportedly set on fire Russian military barracks located in Sovetskoye. But we will talk about this peninsula in more details very soon. Because first of all, some other equally important events happened in Zaporozhye region. And as you can see from this map, Ukrainians were able to liberate a bigger portion of Lapkove, but Russians unfortunately advanced a little bit more to the north. Even more loud noises have been reported in Tokmak and in Melitopol. And speaking specifically about Melitopol, at least 10 Ukrainian attacks have been recorded, which wounded and eliminated, reportedly, at least a couple of hundred Russian soldiers. And ultimately, there has even been an attempt against life of the head of Kherson region, Vitaly Bulyuk, which was located in Melitopol at that moment. And going back to Crimea, Ukrainians were able to destroy a hotel located in Tarasivka, which Russians were using as their military headquarters. And in addition to that, several loud noises have been heard in Sevastopol. And as you can see from this video, Russians, in anticipation of Ukrainian counteroffensive against Peninsula, started digging trenches along Crimean shoreline. So as you can see, Ukrainians are pretty serious at retaking this peninsula, and Russians perfectly understand this. Because if you remember from my previous episodes, the grand withdrawal of Russians from the south already began, And the first directions when they started to go is to go deeper inside Kherson region to Zaporozhye and to Crimea. Which basically means that sooner or later Ukrainians will be able to cross Dnipro river for good and start retaking the rest of Kherson region. And one of the first major problems for Russians as soon as it happens is that the peninsula will be separated from the rest of occupied Ukraine. Which basically means that the logistics, which is already not even close to be perfect, will become even worse. And according to this article, any military activity against the Crimean Peninsula might provoke and initiate even the nuclear war. And the reason for this, it is because Crimea is so-called legacy of Putin, and he will do everything possible to protect it. In my personal opinion, yes, the escalation might happen as soon as there are attacks against Crimea, but I don't think it will be as severe as nuclear attacks. Most likely, in this case, Russians will be able to abandon the rest of Ukraine, including the east and Donbass, just to focus all of their defenses in Crimea. But you know what? Even this might not happen, because in the past, Ukrainians already attacked the peninsula, they will continue to do this, and they're not planning to stop. As you can see from this map, it is estimated that Russia has approximately 10 airports in Crimea, and 2 of them are considered to be the major airfields, located in Jankoy and Gvardeysk. And this will be exactly among the very first military targets for Ukrainians. Right here, for example, we have a satellite image which shows a lot of military planes of Russians in Jankoy airport. And then right here is another satellite image which shows pretty much the same situation in another airbase of Russians located in Gvardeysk. And in addition to military planes, fighter jets and bombers, Russians also have other military vehicles as well as oil reservoirs and other highly flammable liquids. Which means that even the basic drone attack can inflict a very big damage. One of the main reasons to consider these places as primary military targets, it is because Russians use this airfield to launch planes to bomb Ukraine. And instead of trying to defend the country by intercepting these missiles, Ukrainians decided to solve the problem in its roots. And just like I mentioned previously, Zelensky also thinks that Putin will not use the nuclear weapons to protect the peninsula. According to him, Russians will do everything possible to defend Crimea, but Putin at the same time values only 2 things in his life, which is his life and the power. And his decision to use nukes might put in jeopardy both of these things at the same time. And taking into consideration everything that I just mentioned, the Western countries, especially America, are no longer afraid of Putin and his threats. Even Pentagon, as you can see from this article, gave the green light to Ukraine to attack the territory of Russia using drones. And the reason for this, once again, it is because Russia threatened Ukraine countless number of times, but never delivered on its promises. And yeah, Ukraine obviously has all the rights to protect itself, using both active and passive defense. The passive defense is basically more or less what they have been doing so far. But active defense implies destroying the Russian threat even before they can use it, which also includes some Russian military objects located on the territory of Russia. And once again, America is no longer against such attacks. And because of this, he thinks that this conflict might be over at the negotiations table. But first, obviously, Ukraine needs to physically liberate all the occupied territories. He then also added that Ukraine might think to demilitarize 50 to 100 kilometers of Russian border. And the reason for this is to prevent any possibility of Russian attacks in the near future. And well, right now we do not see much advancement by Ukrainians, but they are just preparing for the massive and most likely ultimate counteroffensive. Because among the very first stages of a successful counterattack is to destroy enemy's military targets in the back. And Ukraine is doing exactly that right now. But then, as soon as a real winter starts and the ground freezes, according to the Minister of Defense of Ukraine, Oleksiy Reznikov, this is when Ukraine will launch its final counteroffensive. But to be honest, more than half of it already happened. Because according to the Ministry of Defense of the United Kingdom, Ukraine already liberated 54% of territories that Russia captured since February. And only 18% of Ukraine, including Donbass and Crimea, is still under the control by Russians. Sooner or later, slowly but surely, Ukraine will win in this war. And as soon as it happens, according to the Secretary General of NATO, Jens Stoltenberg, Ukraine will be more than welcome to join the alliance. And if you don't want to miss the moment as soon as all this good news start coming, just please once again subscribe to my channel, it only takes one click. And if you want to support my work, please consider becoming my channel member, use a PayPal link or become my Patreon, where you'll receive all the extra footage. You can find all the other useful links to the right and down below. Thank you so much for your attention, товарищи, and see you tomorrow.